Uno, dos, tres. Sí. Un minuto. Buenas noches. Antes de comenzar, si alguien necesita servicio de traducción, en la parte de afuera pueden encontrar el servicio. Creo que solo necesitan una identificación.
¿Y son estudiantes de qué carrera? ¿De todas?
No sé.
¿De todas?
Aunque veo algunos que son de doctorado o de maestría ahí también. Les invitamos a pasar. 1, 2, 3. Les invitamos a pasar y tomar sus lugares. Muy buenas noches. Vamos a tratar de empezar a tiempo porque tenemos muy poco tiempo. Mi nombre es Wendy Díaz. A nombre del Instituto de Investigación Educativa, CUSEA y la Universidad de Guadalajara, les damos la más cordial bienvenida a este conversatorio titulado ¿Qué podemos aprender del sistema educativo finlandés? Nos acompañan para ello dos expertos en el tema. Uno con una mirada desde Finlandia y otro con una mirada desde México. Ambos estudian, desarrollan y acompañan proyectos educativos en todo el mundo. El doctor Eduardo Andere actualmente realiza una estancia de investigación en el Boston College y es ampliamente conocido en México, entre otros temas, por sus libros sobre diferentes aspectos del sistema educativo en Finlandia. Sus últimos libros, por cierto, están aquí afuera. El último de ellos es El futuro de las escuelas y la formación de maestros, que tan adelante es uno de ellos, va a Finlandia, ¿cierto? Muy bien, bienvenido, doctor Andere. El doctor David Marsh, por su parte, reside en Finlandia y acompaña proyectos educativos en distintas partes del mundo, entre otras, justo a esta universidad, en los años recientes. Es miembro además del Royal Society of Arts en Londres. La mecánica del evento será una conversación entre nuestros dos ponentes y tendremos después 10 minutos para preguntas de la audiencia. Esperemos que lo disfruten mucho. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. And the next is going to be probably in English and Spanish, and I'm quite sure that it's quite easy for everybody to do it. So let's enjoy the time. David, I think you will be the first one.
Oh, this is quite a big responsibility. When I think about Finnish education and what it can bring to another place, one of the words that comes to my mind is collaboration. Now, a very fast history lesson about Finnish culture. Finland used to be a country of very poor farmers, small family farmers. Farmers need help sometimes. They need help with a harvest. They need help with when the flooding comes. They need help because one of the farmers has broken his leg. And so collaboration is very, very deep in the Finnish culture. And this has come into education. From a very early age, children learn to be team players. They learn to work collaboratively from kindergarten through primary, through secondary. In other words, what happens is that the teacher walks into the classroom and very, very quickly develops forms of teamwork. Teamwork has what we call a multiplier effect. If you bring together one or more forces, you can go further than when all the students are alone, working separately. Think of it as John Lennon and Paul McCartney and the Beatles. Think of it as Diego Luna, and I don't remember the name of the woman in Star Wars, but anyway, his girlfriend in Star Wars. They could accomplish more together than they could alone. It's a little bit like David Beckham's left foot and David Beckham's right foot. The two go further than one alone. I feel collaboration is one of those key aspects.
And you want me to respond on that, or you continue with that?
You respond.
Yeah, I see. Well, thank you very much for being here. I will try to navigate between English and Spanish. If I answer a direct question from David, I will try to do it in English, and then I will address some additional comments in Spanish. Yes, I've been studying Finnish education since 2004, and in 2005, or 2006, after visiting 20 education systems in the world, I chose Finland as the target of my research about a topic that I called at that time, how looks the best education in the world. So, yes, David, I see in the Finnish education and the education system and the way that you deal with this topic of collaboration like a very present in all the schools. But I also, especially in 2019, which is the last time that I visited the schools in Finland because of the pandemic, I also saw a preoccupation in the schools to respect those students that like the solo type of studying. No? So I even saw schools with physical arrangements that support collaboration, like team building, exchange of ideas, working together. But I also saw like special booths for students that want to work alone. So what I see in the Finnish education is flexibility. Of course, collaboration is okay, but sometimes when we are learning, we like to do it alone, and the Finnish schools make sure that they accommodate to either a collaborative style type of student or a student that wants to work alone in their learning process.
Less is best. If you look at the Finnish national curriculum, it is very, very short. If you go to Spain and look at the Spanish national curricula, they are very, very long and very big. In the Finnish national curricula, they say that it's a tool, not a rule. And in Finland, the teachers are empowered to interpret with the students, this is what we need to learn, but together we're going to figure out how to get there. So one of the key issues is competence-based education. The intended learning outcomes are not just about knowledge for tests. They are a marriage of knowledge and skills. I know as a student, this is what I'm going to learn how to do, and this is what I need to learn in my head in order to do it. So the marriage of skills and knowledge is revolutionary, and it's modern, because just with collaboration, it is a needed global competence. It is something that you have to have now to enter working life in Mexico, anywhere. So I feel that competence-based education is also one of those strengths that could be a transversal into any educational system.
Yeah, we started in Mexico to look into competence-based education in the late 90s. And we dramatically make a change towards competence-based education in 2002, 2004, 2006, 2009, with the different reforms of the different curricula for elementary education, primaria, for middle school education, secundaria, and for high school education that we call educación media superior. However, we have a new curriculum that it just started 2 months ago that directly and plainly rejects competence-based education. They say that competence-based education is a fad, and it is an imposition from a European-centric type of education. Well, that's what the new curriculum in Mexico says. What I think, y lo que yo pienso, and I'm going to say it in Spanish now, lo que yo pienso es que las competencias no es algo que se pueda rechazar, es un hecho del aprendizaje. La competencia lo único que hace es reconocer lo que la psicología del aprendizaje nos ha dicho desde que se realizan investigaciones de inteligencia a principios del siglo pasado, que es que los estudiantes aprenden mejor si combinamos, si unimos lo que tú mencionas, David, las habilidades con los conocimientos, con las actitudes, y por ahí le agregamos los valores y otra serie de cosas, de tal manera que tenemos un concepto integral, que es lo que los buenos pedagogos han hecho toda la vida. Las competencias reconocen lo que los buenos pedagogos y los buenos maestros han hecho toda la vida. Entonces no es algo que se pueda rechazar o no rechazar. Aunque la retórica del nuevo currículum lo diga, en realidad prácticamente todas las escuelas del mundo aplican este concepto, que es una verdad de perogrullo, ¿no? Entonces, sí, estamos en una transición curricular, y aunque el currículo diga que el nuevo currículo no está basado en competencias, a fortiori está basado en competencias porque no hay otra forma de hacer bien la pedagogía.
Finnish education used to be regarded as poor, as not very good. Children didn't learn maths, they didn't learn languages, it was not very good. It took a long time to turn it around from being not very good to being super stellar. But what they did was they went around the world and they looked at what works where, and they said, actually, this is something that we could bring home, and then they would invest time in looking at it. The Finnish system has something which is needed, in my view, in the Mexican context, and that is trust. There needs to be trust between the authorities and the teachers, and there needs to be trust between the students and the teachers, because without trust, it's actually very hard to create safe learning environments. And this is a strength of the system. Unfortunately, it's not something that you can learn from reading a book, and it may be a very long path to cross. But empowerment of teachers is absolutely essential if we're going to develop innovative education, and empowerment of students. We, in Finland, our 15-year-old students are treated more like 21-year-old students in, for example, Spain or Italy. They are given responsibility, freedom, and the responsibilities of doing things right from a very early age.
One of the first lessons from comparative education is that we cannot import education policies or education ideas from other countries. We cannot bring the education system or the education model from Finland to Mexico or any other country, because it will fail. In order to be successful in bringing the ideas and the policies and the practices of Finnish education that it is successful in Finland, we would need to bring all the Finnish people to Mexico and to export all the Mexican people to Finland.
Good luck with that.
Because below the education building, there is something that it is more important, which is the culture. Culture defines education rather than the other way around. We would like it to be education that defines culture, but the culture is more important in terms of explaining why do we do what we do. If we look at the surveys about the Mexican culture in terms of trust, la confianza de los mexicanos, we don't trust no one other than our families. We don't trust the neighbors. We are very parochial, very secluded. So that is something that would be very difficult to import into Mexico. We have other traits that are absolutely good. And I agree that trust is very important in the Finnish context, but that is more related to the history of a nation that has very close ties between a very close society. Finland is a country of 5.5 million people. Most of them are Finnish people. There are some people from Sweden. I remember that Finland was part of the monarchy of Sweden for around 800 years. So there's around 15% of the population, if I am not wrong, are from Swedish descent. And there is also Lappish people in the north of Finland, but most of Finnish people are a very close, monolithic Finnish people that love education and love reading. And when I was looking for the reasons of success of Finnish education, well, some people told me, yes, it is trust, but it is also that more or less since 350 years ago, desde hace 350 años, más o menos, los matrimoniantes que se querían casar y acudían con un ministro de la iglesia luterana, la mayoría de los finlandeses son luteranos, no les daban la autorización para casarse los ministros a menos que supieran leer. Entonces tenían que leer desde hace 350 años. Entonces era una población de lectores. Ahora leen menos porque, pues, por el iPhone y por el iPad y todo ese tipo de cosas. They read less because of the digital things. But it is a nation of reading. And it goes back to the history of this 8,000 years old nation. No?
There's no such thing as educational export. It's ridiculous. You will find it in some international schools and for very privileged or people who pay a lot of money, but invariably it is alien and it doesn't work at all. Finland, yes, it's a small country. You could lose it in Guadalajara, actually, probably. Yeah, probably. One of the joys of being in a small country is that you can test ideas very quickly and you can react to problems very quickly. Across the world, we have now a problem, and it's a problem that has developed since about 2010, and it concerns young people aged between 12 and 25, some of whom are in this room, having higher levels of anxiety and sometimes depression, and worse than ever before. The latest research from North America, Canada, Ireland is shocking in terms of the the suffering of young people, particularly young women. Boys are not quite as bad, but they are also pretty bad, but they're not quite as high as young women. So Finland says, okay, we have a problem. We've seen 10 years now a deterioration of the mental well-being of our young people. So we're going to do something about it. Korea says the same, Singapore says the same, Japan says the same. Now, this is something that can be exported because it's not to do with a local culture, because the digital world is a global culture, and this is a global phenomenon and a global problem. So what they've done is, in these countries, they've said, we need to change from our emphasis of what we call KSA. KSA means you go to school, you go to college to learn knowledge. Knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. You do tests, and then you leave with a piece of paper, and hopefully you get married because the priest will allow you to do so. First, it's the knowledge. Then, if there's any time, or if you're lucky, you'll develop some skills, whatever they are, and maybe, it will influence the attitudes. KSA is yesterday's education. Now, they recognize that in Finland. They recognize that in Mexican good schools, because I know Mexican educators who are saying, we have got to change KSA into ASK. ASK means, firstly, I have to get the attitudes of the students to be agreeable in terms of learning what we're learning. I have to have their trust, and I have to negotiate with them why we're at school, why we're learning this mathematics, which is difficult or whatever. So first, the attitudes. If the attitudes are wrong, these kids will not learn, they will fall out, drop out, whatever. Then I have to show them what the skills are that they're going to learn if they stay with me on this course or they're on this module, because this is a digital generation. They don't do things without knowing why they're doing them. They need to know, and they need to have that feeling. So we've changed from KSA, which sounds like Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to ASK, which is attitude, skills, and knowledge. That presumably could be a formula that could be introduced into a huge country like this.
Yeah, it could if we have the proper family-oriented education towards values and attitudes. And I don't think that we have that coming into the schools. And I stress this because I think that's the most important part missing in education, not only in Mexico, in most of the countries of the world, is that we are missing the importance of education at home. What the children bring to the schools when they are 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds. And that's one of the advantages also in Finland. Finland is one of the few countries that until very recently made preschool education obligatory. It was not obligatory. So 2 or 3 years ago was made obligatory, and only for 6 years old for 1 year. Why? Because there is a very strong attitude and relationship, especially from the mothers to the children. There is a system, a motherhood leave system in Finland and in most of the Nordic countries. Los permisos de maternidad en Finlandia y en la mayoría de los países nórdicos pueden llegar hasta 4 años. Entonces, y que se comparten con el papá, ¿no? Entonces, esto les da la oportunidad de tener mucho tiempo para atender, digamos, a los pequeños y crear esa base socioemocional que mencionas, que es tan importante y tan extraordinariamente importante para que los niños cuando lleguen a la escuela sean educables. Nosotros, sumado con eso, tenemos un problema de pobreza. Y la pobreza no solamente afectan las oportunidades de aprendizaje, también afecta el cerebro. Ha sido ampliamente demostrado en estudios neurológicos que los niños que viven en pobreza tienen a los 3 años de edad tienen un desarrollo morfológico muy importante en su capacidad cerebral. Entonces tenemos un problema de que los traemos con pobreza, que es una barrera estructural muy grande, los traemos con un ambiente socioemocional tenso en el hogar, derivado tanto de la pobreza o de que la preparación y la conversación, digamos, que existe en los pequeños, con los pequeños y los padres de familia en los primeros años de edad, no es un intercambio en vocabularios y en espavientos positivo, que es lo que esperaríamos, y eso provoca que los niños nos lleguen a las escuelas con problemas que van más allá de lo pedagógico, y es cuando nos decimos que si son los niños, o que si es la pobreza y la tensión educable. Si un niño me llega a la escuela con tensión tóxica, con pobreza o con negligencia extrema, la pedagogía puede hacer muy poco. Entonces, uno de los grandes problemas que hemos tenido en México para atender el rezago educativo y la brecha educativa es que no hemos atendido a fondo nuestros temas de pobreza y nuestros temas de crianza. Necesitamos una Secretaría de la Crianza Nacional, ¿no? que alimente todos estos aspectos y no cargarles a los maestros la tarea de que además de ser maestros, ahora tienen que ser mamás y papás y tienen que ser psicólogos del aprendizaje y psicólogos del desarrollo infantil, ¿no? Y además les cambiamos los libros de texto y los programas educativos cada 6 años. Entonces, sí, en teoría, es completamente cierto lo que dices, pero en la realidad cuando te enfrentas con un país de 130 millones de habitantes, con una realidad multicultural muy diferente, traer esa receta, finalmente los maestros van a decir, así que lindo, vamos a Finlandia, visitemos, pero cuando lo llevamos a la realidad mexicana no lo podemos aplicar. Y reconozco que es importante. I fully acknowledge the importance of these social-emotional skills.
Remember, this story started in poverty, and it was driven by the equality of men and women. That was a major, major driver in enabling the country to say, we have hostile neighbors, Russia, Sweden at the time. We have a hostile climate, -30, -40 in the winter. We need each other to survive if we need to sort something out. And we have to develop our human capacity because it's the most important asset we have. That is a very different sort of situation to a lot of Latin American countries. I want to bring us to the idea of deep learning and surface learning. KSA was very much about surface learning. It was about learning in classes for the test tomorrow. And as for my future life, who knows, who cares? Deep learning is about really triggering the mind and really motivating and giving a hunger for the students to want to learn more. Now, like everybody in the world, the Finns have had a problem in trying to make this happen. But now they have developed in the last 10 years, and they have made it compulsory in the last 2 years, something called phenomenon-based learning. And this is where you study a topic from different perspectives. For example, we know there is a problem with the well-being of adolescent students. So to address the problem, we can't just send them to psychologists because that's not a fix. We need to embed it into the curriculum. So let's take a topic like happiness. Happiness, okay? A happy topic like happiness. And what we'll do is we will have 3 teachers teaching a module on happiness who will volunteer to be part of this. One of them may be the biology teacher, because happiness, biology, yes. One of them may be a chemistry teacher who can talk about happiness, chemicals, maybe a little bit of intoxicants, whatever. One of them could be a physical education teacher who shows how some bends and strakes can actually, do you see what I mean? One of them may be a language teacher who actually comes together with these two. So what they do is, here is happiness. They study happiness from the biology, from the chemistry, from the physical education. This recipe of what we call interdisciplinary learning is, I think, a major success. And we have been talking about doing this in Mexico. This is perfectly doable in a Mexican context.
I am very, very happy that you bring that about, because, well, I'm going to run a commercial here. And my last book about Finland, which is this one published 1.5 years ago, is about phenomenon-based education. And I was very happy to read, when I started to read the new curriculum in Mexico, that they were calling for these campos formativos, which sounds to the phenomenon-based learning that David is talking to us. Phenomenon-based learning is beyond campos formativos. Phenomenon-based learning is beyond project-based learning. Maybe you have been hearing in the news or reading or in lectures here and there that the main changes in the curriculum, or two of the main changes in the curriculum for basic education in Mexico, is that we are going for campus formativos instead of disciplines, and that we are using mostly project-based learning in schools and in the classrooms. Well, you can do that in Finland, but it is very difficult to do it here, because our teachers here, the teachers that are applying this kind of project-based learning and campus formativos, were trained for a different curriculum. They were trained for a totally different curriculum than the curriculum that we have today. Los maestros que se están graduando ahorita de las normales son los maestros de Peña y son los maestros del currículum que se acaba de derogar. Y los maestros que se están formando para el project-based learning son maestros que egresarán dentro de 5 años de las normales, cuando seguramente tendremos un nuevo currículum, de acuerdo a la nueva ideología que impere en la SEP o en el gobierno federal dentro de 5 años. The idea is great. No? I fully support campus formativos, but the way that they are implementing that idea in Mexico with teachers that are not trained for this type of education will call the teaching, we are going to be teaching campus formativos, but they will be teaching what they know. So they will be doing what they were doing before, and they will call it campus formativos teaching or project-based education. So again, it's a good idea with a difficult learning environment in our education situation in Mexico. But I agree. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal.
I would like to talk about the elephant in the room. What is that in Spanish? The elephant.
El elefante en la habitación.
I love Spanish. It's so easy. The elephant in the room now facing us is AI as a tool to transform the teaching at universities and the teaching at secondary and the teaching at primary. AI, not in terms of the students using the AI in the classes, but in terms of first, the teacher having AI as a teaching assistant. The potential of this is not tomorrow, it's today. And we can see across, not much, but a little bit across different continents, from Africa, which is where I was about 3 weeks ago, to Finland, to Mexico, teachers going, oh gosh, I have been waiting for this opportunity for so long to have at my fingertips a good friend who gives me what I need. What the teacher needs to do is to learn how to ask the right questions. And then the forms of AI that we have now for free, ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc., can give fantastic things. Look, during the pandemic, we learned, a lot of people learned, unfortunately they now forget, of how difficult it is to be a good teacher. And during the pandemic, a lot of people began to show respect for teachers in some countries where there had been no respect before. In Finland, the teachers are not very highly paid. But in Finland, they have a lot of respect. And part of that respect comes from central government, who says, do what you can, but don't do everything, because you won't have time. If you go to a country like Italy or Spain, you'll find the curriculum is so heavy, you have got to be superhuman to be able to get through it, according to the regulations. So one of the qualities in Finland, which is very difficult to achieve in a federalized system, is to reduce the amount that you have to teach, reduce the quantity, but increase the quality. And if you take KSA and ASK, the quality is in handling the students as the human beings, as the complex human beings they are, because you'll get much better learning results from those students if only the teacher has the respect and the space, the mental space, in order to achieve it.
Ya se nos está acabando el tiempo, pero no quiero ser la mosca del pastel. Una vez más, y créanme que yo admiro la educación finlandesa, o sea, he dedicado parte de mi vida de investigador a estudiar a Finlandia junto con otros países, pero porque Finlandia, bueno, es reconocida en prácticamente todos los canales como el país con la mejor educación en el mundo, pero la diferencia cuando tú dices los maestros tienen la libertad de decir cómo enseñan, qué enseñan, cuándo enseñan. It is totally different to Mexico. In Mexico, you don't have the freedom to choose the textbook. You have to use one textbook. So in Finland, teachers can use the book or the books that they want. I once went to a school with secondary school, una escuela secundaria in Finland, and the principal of the school, she's retired now, but she was a writer of libros de enseñanza de las matemáticas de secundaria. She had 9 books of math education for lower secondary students. And then she showed the books to the teachers, and the teachers said, well, thank you, principal, but we will not use your books. We will use these other books that we like best. So they are free to use the books that they want. They are free to use the pedagogic and the way they want to teach. So you have the same curriculum in Finland from the National Board of Education and from the law from the parliament, but you could have a Steiner school or a Montessori school or an international Bachillerato International school teaching the same curriculum with different pedagogics. That is not possible in Mexico. Teachers are not free to do what they want to do. I stop there because
There's something else? One more? Yes. And we will start the
In
question.
some systems, the failed teachers, the teachers who should never have become teachers, the teachers who became teachers because they had nothing else to do, become head teachers, and they become leaders of schools. And in those countries, that's not Mexico, I know, and it's not Finland, but in those countries, it's a disaster. My final point about Finnish education, which is possible in a Mexican school, or could be, is what we call distributed leadership. Those students learn to take responsibilities from a very early age for many things, including checking there's no bullying, including making sure that the place is clean outside, etc. But distributed leadership means that the responsibilities of leadership go through the staff of the system. It's not held in the hands of one or two people at the very top. And I think this, Eduardo, I think this might be a healthy thing.
Yeah, but I want to stop because Wendy told me to stop.
No, you can just answer
Sorry,
to them
sorry.
and then I go for the questions, yes?
Oops.
Yes, I agree with the idea of distributive leadership, and I agree with the idea of having wonderful principles. We have a problem there as well. But I stop there. Stop.
Ready.
Ok, bueno, lo voy a hacer en español y luego quizás en inglés. Vamos a entrar a un periodo de preguntas de 10 minutos. Mientras preparan sus preguntas, entiendo que alguien por allí nos ayudaría a ello con el micrófono que está atrás, mientras yo quiero hacerles una pregunta. Dado que se ve el contraste entre lo que pasa en Finlandia y en México, pregunto lo siguiente. Evidentemente es casi como generar hipotéticamente una agenda para el gobierno federal. ¿Qué es lo que sí deben de aprender a hacer? Porque yo sí he visto esos proyectos funcionando en pequeñas comunidades escolares donde aplican justamente lo que comenta David y que probablemente en el sistema educativo en general no se aplican porque diferentes razones. Y ahí es donde vendrían un poco, si pudiera darme cada uno de ustedes 5 puntos que debería considerar el gobierno mexicano, cualquiera que llegue en las próximas elecciones, ¿qué debería de considerar, repensar?
Do you want to begin, or shall I?
Is that a very difficult one?
Do you want to begin, or shall I?
Five.
answer?
Okay,
Yes, just
okay.
I mean, considering that you have also been involved in visiting or having talks with the federal government to, under views of.
Creativity. Give space for teachers and students to be creative. Education is not just about reading and writing and speaking, it's about thinking. Nowadays, language is visual, it's musical, it's auditory, it's numerical. There are many, many ways for the human being to communicate. So basically, creativity would be a priority for me.
That's one.
No,
Okay.
I have like 20 points.
Okay, well, you can do it.
To suggest to the Mexican government
Santa Claus is coming. So.
what to do. First of all, is to, like 10 years ago, I was in a radio interview and the anchor person asked me a question: what would you do if you become Minister of Education? ¿No? Secretario de Educación. Y le dije, nunca me van a hacer secretario de Educación. No, bueno, pero pues, ¿qué harías si te hacen secretario de Educación? What would you do if you happen to be Secretary of Education? They will never make me Secretary of Education. Why? Because the first thing that I will do is to close CEP. ¿No? Cerrar la CEP. ¿No? Because there is no way that one single entity with 250,000 schools, we have 250,000 schools in Mexico, with totally different realities, be managed by el escritorio de Vasconcelos. por muy bonito que sea el escrito, que es muy bonito, ¿no? No es posible. Entonces, we need to change, not the model. No, we don't need to change the curriculum model. We can adopt whatever is there. There are hundreds of wonderful curriculums or curricula in the world. The Finnish one, the Singaporean one, the several curricula in the US, the Scottish one, the New Zealand one, many wonderful curriculums that sit on science to write those documents. We need to change the system from the roots, not the model of education. And we haven't been able to do that. And so what I would suggest
One way to do that is collaboration. Quite frankly, one teacher in this room, if there are any teachers, could get more by having a friend in Germany or Tokyo or Tanzania, 2 or 3 friends who are teaching, to form a friendship group to do various things in the school, and collaboration with the students. The students' voice should be heard from primary onwards. How on earth are they going to develop their self-respect and to understand how to do others? So I think collaboration.
Yeah, and I want to raise a point that Wendy was making. Yes, in my travels around the world, I also traveled to schools in Mexico, and I found wonderful schools and wonderful teachers, even without resources.
Yeah.
So if we are going to have a change in Mexico, given the circumstances, the change is going to come from bottom up rather than from the top down. So what we do in our own homes and what we do in our own classrooms, it is the light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's the way that it will change. Okay.
Well, then, for the questions, do we have one? ¿Alguna pregunta por allí? ¿La audiencia le quedó muy claro? Yes, somebody here.
I hope it's an easy question.
Yeah, let's go.
No easy questions. no easy questions in Mexico.
Maybe just speak loud. Speak loud.
Yeah.
Okay, gracias.
Buenas noches. Tengo una pregunta para el doctor Eduardo Andere.
Adelante.
Los problemas en la educación en México los retos que hay son muy evidentes y ampliamente documentados por varios académicos y es algo que se ve en los medios, lo platicamos en casa, pero a veces también parece que hay una percepción pesimista de la realidad educativa de nuestro país. Creo que también hay puntos de luz. Entonces, me da mucha curiosidad por saber si usted pudiera, así como ha enumerado todos los retos que evidentemente están ahí, cuáles son las virtudes, las ventajas, las oportunidades que hoy ya podemos ver en el sistema educativo mexicano. Gracias.
Can I say one? Because I've worked in Jalisco for about 7 years, off and on. Passion. Working here for me, and I work in different countries, this is my favorite because of the passion of educators from universities through high schools.
I think one of the things, it is going back to what Wendy told us 5 minutes ago, that there are wonderful teachers that are working without resources. There are wonderful schools that are working without resources. There are wonderful principals, but those are anecdotes. It's not like the reality of Mexico. When you go and do like the surveys, perdón, lo voy a contestar en español, y los estudios sobre el promedio de la calidad o sobre, no conozco Gilberto, tú me ayudarás o Wendy, no conozco estudios de liderazgo en las escuelas mexicanas. Debe de haber líderes maravillosos, pero también me he encontrado líderes que no entienden cuál es el problema. Una vez me tocó visitar una escuela cuando estaba haciendo mis rondas en México, que tenía turno matutino y turno vespertino. Y llegué a la escuela al turno vespertino y me recibió la directora del turno vespertino en el patio de la escuela, en un escritorio más o menos en el centro del patio de la escuela. También es una anécdota, no es la regla general. Y le digo, ¿y dónde está su oficina? Esta es mi oficina. ¿Pero qué? La escuela no tiene una oficina de director? Todas las escuelas tienen oficinas de director. Sí, pero el director de la mañana la cierra con candado para que yo no la pueda ocupar en la tarde. Y junto conmigo estaba la supervisora de la zona. Y volteo y le digo a la supervisora, ¿qué onda? No puedo hacer nada. El director es muy fuerte. ¿No? Ese tipo de cosas, digamos que cuento como anécdota, también las hay por el otro lado. ¿No? Otra vez me encontré con un director en una escuela, en una zona donde no se podía entrar a la escuela a menos de que uno entrara en ambulancia, porque la inseguridad de las pandillas alrededor de la escuela no permitían entrar, lo único que respetaban eran las ambulancias. Entonces el director, para tratar de crear, digamos, una isla de seguridad, tenía que levantarse a las 4 de la mañana para llegar a las 4:30 de la mañana a la escuela y poder entrar a la escuela junto con los maestros y los padres de familia para que los dejaran entrar. Y él diseñó un esquema para enfrentarse, digamos, a este cinturón de inseguridad que estaba viviendo la escuela. Es un director maravilloso. Todo ese tipo de casos los tengo relatados en varios libros que he publicado sobre la educación en México, en donde resalto la importancia de lo local, de lo que está sucediendo, cómo están resolviendo esos problemas. Escuelas que enfrentan enormes y graves dificultades. ¿No?
It's Sunday evening, and I would like to say a very warm thank you to everybody in this room who has come here on a Sunday evening at 8 o'clock at night or something. Tremendous. And our wonderful interpreter. It has been a joy to have this translation, interpretation. Thank you so much. And thank you basically to all of you for being here and being interested in taking it further. Here we have our Mexican top expert in the field, and here we have in this state a lot of very, very superb, innovative teachers who just need the oxygen and the freedom to get going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gracias.
Pues justo, ya no hay tiempo para otra pregunta. Muchas gracias a los expositores, muchas gracias a la audiencia. Y de nuevo, a nombre de la Universidad de Guadalajara, que pasen buenas noches y nos vemos en la próxima. Gracias.